I'll go ahead and introduce our roundtable host or roundtable guest. So Olivia Jarvis is ChartMogul's head of new business and is a self-proclaimed SaaS Metrics Fanatic. Olivia joined ChartMogul in April 2019, 4 years after starting her sales career. Coming from a background in both SaaS and startup sales, she aims to help you think about your business's growth, goals, and potential, orienting you around sales practices that align with the ethics and morals of your organization. And this roundtable is going to be on how to build a sales organization you're proud of. Take it away, Olivia.
Thank you so much. So for those of you that have just joined, Sarah mentioned a little earlier, you have joined a roundtable discussion. So my hope is that we can kind of start to get some dialogue going. I have some questions that I will pose to you guys throughout, but my hope is that we can kind of start to drum up some conversation. So as Sarah mentioned, my name is Olivia. Thank you so much for having me. I'm the head of new business at ChartMogul, and I am very fortunate to be able to say that I really love my sales job. I love my job because I am in a position where I get to be really consultative. I spend my days kind of elbow deep in people's revenue data, helping SaaS businesses think about why metrics like churn or lifetime value really, really matter. But today is not about subscription analytics, though I could talk about it all day. Today is about sales ethics. So I kind of want to start with a bit of a kind of a baseline around what are sales ethics. I realized when I was putting this presentation together and started kind of polling my peers that this was not a concept that a lot of people really found rolled off the tongue. Sales ethics, in short, is a code of conduct, a standard by which you hold yourself and your teammates to in your sales teams. So if we were going to kind of start here and think about why we're talking about sales ethics. When I think personally about my career as a salesperson, I'm really proud of the kind of key foundations that make up who I am and the service that I aim to provide in a sales capacity. As sales managers, as small teams, as startups, it's really, really easy for us to put emphasis on sales outcomes, which are often hitting targets, hitting quotas. But I would argue that the way that you get there is just as, if not more important. So sales ethics are often forgotten about. Companies spend a lot of time in stuffy boardrooms talking about company values. Sometimes they pay a really expensive private consultant to figure out what words they're going to plaster up on the walls when COVID is over. But I believe it's high time that we take this conversation into the sales kind of capacity. Basically, the long and short of this is, it's important to create relationships, and it's been reported that businesses that have high ethical standards often have higher customer satisfaction, greater customer retention, and often see a lot more active referrals. So that's kind of also a plus to this as well. Oh, wrong way. Okay, so let's kind of start this here. I'll start with a little bit of a personal side of this. So when before I took my job at ChartMogul, I was dabbling in some consulting projects where I was coaching salespeople, oftentimes young salespeople, around their own kind of sales brand and the personal sales ethics that they bring to a team. I was also working with teams and understanding kind of the importance of this topic. Now, when I think about this question and I kind of pose it to you guys, I'm curious to think about if you evaluate the ethics of your sales teams and their customer interactions. This can range from the hiring process right through to managing and handling your one-on-ones. Does anyone want to kind of kick off the dialogue here around evaluating sales ethics? Come on, there's some eager beaver somewhere. I'll share a story and then someone else can jump in. All right, so maybe the guy with the northern lights, mostly because they're so beautiful. There we go. I'll share a story. So I worked at a software company a couple of years ago, and I worked with an individual in my team that sold the product from the 1st of the month to the 15th of the month at full price. When the 15th of the month hit, the 15th till the end of the month, he sold the software at a month-end discount price. Now, this was a really interesting way of selling, closed a ton of business, hit target every single month. And this discounting behavior kind of flew under the radar. As a sales team, we started to kind of catch on to this month-end discount that was kind of flying around. But it kind of flew under the radar with management because he was hitting target. It wasn't really brought to the attention of the business until we went to a industry conference and two of our customers were there, and they ended up kind of chatting over lunch one day. And customer one was absolutely floored to understand that they were paying double what customer two was paying. So this opened up a conversation with us around the practices of salespeople and how we think about discounting and how we ethically approach the way that we price our product. So that example is kind of an ethical example that could have perhaps been caught in the interview process. This is something that might have been asked early on when building a team. This is something that could have been caught in regular one-on-ones and kind of an overview of deals that are coming in under a particular salesperson. It also probably could have been caught by another salesperson putting my hand up and saying, how is this fair? I'm selling at full price, trying to get, everyone in at the same kind of value point. This is hard for me. And, maybe I missed my target and I'm bummed about it. So those are three examples of times that it could have been evaluated. Does anyone want to add anything to that kind of story?
I will, since I was nominated to do so, for sure.
Thank you so much.
I'm brand new to sales. So I started in a sales-oriented environment in January, and my manager left the company I'm with a week before COVID hit. So a lot of my onboarding and training has been impacted. The ethics hasn't really come up too much, thankfully, because we're a pretty solid company and it's pretty transparent how we operate. But I tuned into this convo because I wanted to hear what people, and I've been learning a lot of content throughout the summit, but I kind of wanted to hear some of the issues that you've come across and what I can keep my eyes open for.
Okay. Can I ask you a quick follow-up question?
Please.
Do you think that you have a concept of your own personal sales ethics yet, or do you think that it's still early days?
Yeah. I liked how you opened, where you're like, I know something, I'm going to attempt to paraphrase you. You're like, I know my values. I know who I am. And that empowers me to problem solve for others and help others. And that resonated with me because I think that's a lot of how I operate. Throughout your authenticity, it's hard to be vulnerable, and that's going to work for some and it's not going to work for others. And, evaluate that and move forward. With that being said, I think integrity is pretty important to how I operate. Within my first week, I thought I was getting paid too much versus what I signed on the contract. Maybe the first month was my company. And I was like, hey, I hate to do this, but I think you're overpaying me. So
you're a good guy.
I mean, maybe we'll see.
Gotcha.
So I think I've got a bearing on it for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
The reason I ask that, when I started my career in sales, my first ever sales job, I pitched myself. That was my interview. Pitch us on why you should get this job. And I looked on the company website and I thought, I am so underqualified for this job. I had worked in recruitment for years and I thought I knew how to engage with people, but I thought, oh my goodness, how am I going to take an account executive job? I've never even been an SDR. So I looked on the company website and the three things that stood out to me was their three values were they wanted to hire someone that was happy, hungry, and humble. These will stick in my head till the day I die. And I centered my entire pitch on being those three things. And bizarrely, that has kind of become a bit of a foundation about the type of salesperson that I want to be. And when I decided to kind of study sales practice, my ethics kind of rooted from these three pillars of I always want to be providing value. I want to bring light to people's companies. I want to make sure that I understand what's keeping them up at night. And I only want to provide value. And if I'm not doing that, then I haven't won the right to sell and I can bow out. So that is a helpful commentary. And thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, inspiring. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, no problem at all. Is there anything else that anyone wants to add?
Yeah, I can jump in here if you guys can hear me.
Yeah.
It's Wingham. So like, it's an interesting topic. I've been in sales for 10 years, but in different capacities. And I didn't really build my sales ethics until I think after I started selling credit cards for 2 years. And imagine that whole world. Like there were like no ethics at all. Like they were like, just say anything, get people to sign, you'll get $30 a pop. And I also sold like events, I ran parties for, 5 years during college, and it was like almost the same thing. And as soon as I jumped into account management and sales with Microsoft, it was like a whole different world, right? There was all these like clear cut conversations, and it wasn't only until then you start to realize that your ethics can actually impact your performance, right? So, if I started just blabbing off things on the platform that my platform couldn't do, I'll have like the VP of like software engineering come full circle saying like, well, why did you promise something that we don't even do, right?
Of course.
And it took a couple of years to just really like shake that off, and and then you start seeing what are like the good SaaS companies and what are the poor SaaS companies where they're just over promising and under delivering, right? And then it's almost kind of a unique world where I even see it now. I've been on quite a few. I built a couple business development teams. I just back onto the account executive team, and you'll see a difference between someone who sold software and sales back in like 90s and the 2000s, where it's just a lot of talking, and then someone's a new kind of account executive where we've kind of modeled ourselves around listening and a consultative approach, and it's just like the whole world of it. There's such a range of salespeople. It kind of just gives us a bad name almost a little bit, right? So
for sure,
it's a really great topic you're bringing up, and I never really thought of it until it's always in the background, but I remember being that person. I felt like horrible signing, like I was great at it, signing 50, 40 people up for credit cards, like making $500 a day. But at the end of the day, I was like, was I really doing service to people or just giving people more credit?
Totally. You raise a really, really good point about believing in what you're selling. Belief in what you're selling tends to make for better salespeople, right? I find that personally. I have left jobs because I, perhaps got to a point in my career where I thought, this isn't really doing what I thought it was doing for people, and I feel slimy about it. And that's an okay realization point, but it's a really, really kind of important, it's an important thing to kind of take stock of as we go. The next kind of dialogue point will kind of continue on this, but I appreciate you bringing that up. And I'm keen to hear your thoughts when we get to kind of the end on this topic. But you made a second point around kind of knowing and not really thinking about this. I want to talk about the concept of a sales compass. So when I interviewed with ChartMogul, my now manager, Sarah, had me do a short discovery call exercise. Now, my sales methodology that I studied under is the Dale Carnegie methodology of relationship-oriented sales. So discovery calls are my favorite thing in the entire world. I love them, with the exception of like a fun pricing negotiation. Now, the reason I bring this up is because Sarah sent me the assignment, and on the first page of the assignment, on the package, there was a page that was entitled Sales Compass. And I felt like I was given keys to the kingdom. Like, this was awesome. Not only did this give me a framework to really understand how I was going to be evaluated and measured as a salesperson on a personal level, it helped me kind of start to think about how ChartMogul did business. So in an interview process where they're interviewing me, I could kind of start to understand what they would be looking at. And then also as a salesperson looking for a job, I could start to say, okay, does this line up with who I am and the things that I believe in? Does this line up with my personal methodologies? Do I feel like I'm really gunning for the right job right now with the right organization? So if we look at this sales compass, and I'll share this with you guys after the fact so that you can kind of think about it in your own time. This has really guided some super constructive feedback loops between myself and my director. we had a conversation last week about the speed in which I pick up new trials. I am a solo salesperson right now, and I got to be honest, I've let a couple of trials sit for an hour too long. And we come back to this time and time again where she says, you know, we got to be timely. Like, this is an important thing. Like, we got to make sure we're picking these up. That's constructive feedback for me as a salesperson. This compass also places a ton of value on me, not only learning my software kind of in and out to make sure that I'm selling it appropriately and really believing in what I'm selling. But this is also kind of coming back to the idea of understanding your customers. What's keeping your customers up at night? Do we really understand them? Do we know what questions to ask so that we are really kind of earning the right to sell to them? It also made me think about our space. What are competitors doing that are really, really cool? Oftentimes people are really, really scared of competitors, but competitors are awesome. They're shining a light on your customers. Do I speak about them respectfully? Do I share pieces of information that competitors are putting out? For sure. That's all part of this sales compass and in being really, really invaluable in all of our touches. ChartMogul is a remote first company. If you guys joined from the beginning, we were talking about the fact that my CEO is now in Seoul, Korea. I am the only person in Vancouver, and I am on the farthest time zone, and I'm all by myself. And these kind of compass points have allowed us to ensure that we are staying aligned as a remote first team. And it doesn't matter that my boss is asleep right now, we're on the same page no matter what. Okay, so if we think about a sales compass and developing a sales compass, when I work with individuals on this concept, oftentimes people raise words like integrity and, you know, those types of things come out really, really early. But I find that it's kind of easier to think about this kind of from think about it backwards. So if we think about ethical standards in society, let's say, we often learn what is right or wrong in a bit of a funny way. So I wrote this down and I'm going to say it slowly. And I recognize I'm a fast-talking Torontonian. But we often know what is right by actually knowing what is wrong. So if we think about that in the context of don't drink and drive. Okay, I won't. But nobody says drive sober. We say don't drink and drive. Not drinking and driving is the wrong thing to do. So if you are starting to kind of think about your sales compass, it's actually sometimes helpful to go backwards and start asking yourself, what would be unethical sales practices? I'm going to open up this dialogue to talk about unethical sales practices, but I'll kind of share a bit of a story on this. When I was starting my career in sales and starting to kind of think about who I wanted to be, I didn't want to be salesy. I didn't want to be pushy. I'm a, relationship-oriented person. I really wanted to be fueled with integrity. And part of that means that I like to hyper-personalize my emails. When I send outreach to people, I do my research on who I'm sending my email to. I really find something that might be valuable to them and I send it out. Now, I took a job at a startup once, and on my first day, they gave me my laptop and I opened it up and they said, and here are your 9 email addresses. And I was like, 9 email addresses? What am I going to need 9 email addresses for? Well, you're going to be basically breaking Gmail every single day to hit as many people as you humanly can. And then you are going to filter through your 9 emails every single day to ensure that you are answering the people that come back to our mass outreach. There's nothing wrong with mass outreach. It is a process by which people do contact people. But for me, as a salesperson who was starting to root myself in the idea of, creating value at every touch point, ensuring that I'm not hitting somebody and wasting their time, this felt really, really unaligned. For me, that was an unethical process. It might not be unethical for some teams. But let's kind of open up the conversation around this to start to think about how we might flip it towards an ethical sales compass pillar, so to speak. Does anyone want to share an unethical sales practice or something they believe to be unethical?
I'll share one.
Answers. Oh, who was first there? Ross.
No, I was going to suggest that Stephen Brady, who popped a little comment in the chat about this, could also talk, but I don't want to throw you under the bus. If you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to.
Who spoke up? I think your name was Ross.
Yep. Yeah. My name's Ross. I would say in my experience at a seed-funded company, an unethical sales practice that I took part in as a very new account executive was deceptively selling product roadmap versus what was actually in the product. And,
Yes.
like anything that's more than 6 months out is, in my opinion, unethical, but it should always be stated like what's real and what's not. So.
That's really, really interesting. I'm sure we could totally have a debate on this for sure. But you raise a good point. Will somebody gain value today from starting to put their credit card in and pay you, or are you selling them on something that they're going to be waiting and twiddling their thumbs for? That's a really, really good one. Does anyone else have
I have a question.
Of course.
Hopefully it's not too far off topic, but do you think that lack of a sales process gives you more liberty to kind of bend the rules? Because I'm at a small business right now, and there's nothing really solidified in the process we use. So it does give a little room for creativity. And I feel that with a little too much rope, it could get a little gray on how things go.
That is a stellar point, Scott. A really, really good point. And what I'll share after this is something that my manager wrote. And with our sales compass comes a sales playbook. And knowing your playbook is really, really important. I think that a lot of organizations and early stage startups hire a ton of salespeople. They've found a process that works really well. So they hire 10 more people and they say, just do what this guy did. Good luck. And oftentimes that lacks structure and can often create room for there to be some unethical processes that might not be wrong, but they might just not align with how your company wants to do business. I would challenge you, if you're in that position, be the salesperson that asks to create ethics or to ask to create a compass. Ethics sounds really, really scary to people and they often feel like they're in trouble. But creating a sales compass is not a bad way to start this conversation. Even just like documenting processes that you have seen work, I think is really, really an incredible way to start this, but it happens all the time. You are definitely not alone in that, especially in early stage SaaS.
I'm just going to chime in here really quickly. We're coming up to the technical kind of time, but since this is a regular Zoom call, you're all welcome to stay on as long as Olivia will have you. For other people that need to hop off for the next call, this will be recorded, so you'll be sent the full recording if you do want to see it. But just in a couple of minutes here, I'm going to hop off and Colin will hop off too, so that we can take the live stream over to our next chat, which will be with Patrick Campbell. But anyway, I'll leave you to it. So yeah, welcome to stick around as long as you guys want to.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you all for coming. This is the end of my presentation. This was aimed to kind of just open the door. I will post these slides. Look at the compass, read it in your own time. I'm also going to post the blog post that my manager, Sarah, wrote on kind of creating your first sales team. It's going to touch on a lot of the points that came up today. I really appreciate the things that people have raised. But if you want to talk to me, I'm in the Slack channel. Send me a Slack message. We can set up a Zoom one-on-one and we can chat about this in more detail. But thanks to Predictable Revenue for having me. It was a pleasure. And if anyone wants to stick around, I'll stick around for the next half hour or so if anyone really wants to bend my ear on sales ethics.
Thanks so much, Olivia.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Okay. I think now I have to man the chat myself. Thank you.
Hey, Olivia, I have a question for you.
Yeah, of course. Hi, Griffin.
Hey, yeah, thanks for taking the time to host this today.
No problem.
My question's around ethics. Like, I don't know if you're, like, I'm sure you're experienced with this since you have a lot of professional experience, but, like, ethics within, like, your company. So, like, since we're in a remote world today and it sounds like my company is leaning toward, like, going fully remote, unsure yet. Ethics around, like communication, I guess. Like, it's harder to obviously I think, communicate with one another, even though we still have Slack and Zoom. It's not really the same as like an in-person experience, so to speak. But
Right.
there's days where like Slack is really active, and then there's other days where, you know, things are more slow and Slack's on not as active. I was just curious in terms of like reaching out one-on-one to colleagues that I may not have as much interaction with, but I have sparing questions about.
Mm-hmm.
What your thought around like the ethics of like
internal communications?
Yeah.
We have like a pretty cool Slack protocol, in the sense that we keep a lot of channels quite locked down so that we're not kind of bogging down people with information. If we wanted to kind of come back to this, I would actually center it around your company values and how you guys kind of engage as a company. If you have a company value that you ensure that, everyone's time is well spent, let's say, we have values around that as well. And something that we have done that has allowed us to kind of keep everybody on track and keep things kind of aligned with how we want to do business as a remote first team, we use Notion. And Notion is kind of like it's a Bible, like everything is in there, absolutely everything. From a team perspective, teams meet very regularly. And then in terms of outreach with other teams, we kind of leave it up to people to be able to speak up in specific situations that they need help. What I would kind of caution you on, and this is something we talk about a lot, is being respectful of time zones and being really respectful of people's hours. This is the same in sales. We can kind of bring this back to sales here. I wouldn't send an email at 2:00 in the morning to somebody. I really don't want somebody seeing my name on their phone at 2:00 in the morning. The same goes for your colleagues. So kind of starting to work backwards in that same idea around what would you not want to be doing is going to help you think about what you do want to do. So that's like, hey, I don't want us, at mentioning everybody in every sales channel. It's just too noisy. It creates too much noise for people. Please at mention people personally if you have a specific question. But that's a really good question. And we actually have a blog post on going remote. So I'm going to send it to you, Griffin.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much, Olivia.
Yeah, no problem. Does anyone else have anything else they want to add? Questions? Can I question the group? Do we have any sales managers on? All salespeople? Put your hand up if you're a salesperson. Okay, I see you. I see a few of you. Okay. Do you have a sales methodology? Do people in the room, when I started out in sales, the Challenger sales model was really, really kind of hot. Everyone was reading the Challenger sale book. I actually didn't get a job once because I didn't read the book. I have now. Don't worry about it. But I'm curious if people, and you don't necessarily need to share, but if you have a sales methodology that you follow.
Hey, Olivia, this is Brandon O'Sullivan.
Hey, Brandon.
I run North America sales for Drone Deploy.
Hey.
And we use Medic.
You use Medic. Okay, cool. And do you train people on that when they come in, or do you ask that people have the methodology locked and loaded when you interview?
Most of them have had some level of Medic experience in the past, but we definitely have that as part of our onboarding program, and we've implemented it directly into Salesforce as well.
Fabulous. Okay, so this raises a really, really good point around training your employees. So this was kind of where I was going with this, and as salespeople, I mean, at some point you're going to be looking for another job. Let's just get that out there. Around that, I would my kind of recommendation around this is hiring people with these skills is sometimes hard. Having someone that goes, yep, I know exactly what Medic is, or I know exactly what the Challenger methodology is, can often be hard. But incorporating methodology training from the beginning is likely going to create a sales culture that you can count on. To your point, you have it in Salesforce. Like, you very easily can figure out if a sales rep has done discovery in a specific way that you guys are really interested in kind of following. That kind of concept around methodology oftentimes is really helpful in developing sales ethics. and ensuring that the newbie that comes in and says, hey, I've never done that before, really is set up for success. Personal opinion. I had something in the chat here. Please send the blog post on going remote. For sure, I will. We just got, okay, you guys are more than welcome to go join the Patrick Campbell talk. Go for it. Owner here trying to learn. If anyone wants to continue this conversation with me or drop me a line personally on Slack, feel free. I'm not going to waste your time anymore. I really appreciate your time. Is it possible the basic sales ethics, everything you follow? I will share some information that I have on this that I have read over the years. HubSpot's blog has some really killer ones too. I'll share that with you. And if there's anything else, just let me know.
Actually, just curious,
yeah.
But thanks for the chat. Currently for myself, I'm still studying, but I did a sales SDR as an intern. Previously, I'm pretty interested in sales. I'm just curious as to, because sales ethics was not something that was heavily emphasized in my previous company, but don't worry, they were not the most, they were not unethical. They were actually very value-based. My boss, he drilled into me about how the importance of giving value to the customer and not cheating them. So I'm just curious as to how you developed your this sense of ethics or your personal ethics over the years. Was there a huge event that, because I'm pretty sure it develops over time. So can you just let us know or just share with us how you managed to change your values and ethics over your sales career?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think it comes from a couple of key places. That's actually a really, really good question. I think fundamentally, I am an individual that really, I like guidance. I like boundaries. So when I came into my career and I thought about who I wanted to be and how I wanted to present myself in the workforce and how I wanted to approach my sales career, there was kind of an innate desire to provide value. I used to say to people, when people said, why do you want to get into sales? I'd say, I just feel like I want to be the person in the middle between, someone that's on one side of a bridge wanting to get to the other side of the bridge, and I want to direct them. That was the analogy that I used to give. So personally, I had a desire already. I would then say that I joined a company that I began to lose faith in the product. Losing faith in the product really made me kind of question how I was going to morph and evolve as a salesperson. You kind of have to stub your toe a couple times to know that the corner is right there. So I think that really started to get me thinking about how I was going to approach my sales career. The third thing, and probably the most important, I got trained. I went and got proper sales training. I have a really awesome bachelor's degree that I loved. I can do a lot of cool things, but I learned on the fly. I asked for a lot of help from sales mentors in the world. But I got to say, as soon as I enrolled in formal sales training, and as I said, I went to the Dale Carnegie School of Training out here in Vancouver, and I studied relationship-oriented sales. I read all their descriptions and I said, hey, that one sounds like me. And it has totally changed my trajectory. So if you have an educational budget, use it, because it is so worth it. And if you don't have one, ask for one. ask to get trained. It really helped me develop my personal brand. Thank you for that question.
What?
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry if I'm holding the questions here.
No, go for it.
Sort of relating to the training part. I've been in sales for a couple of years already, but I'm always eager to learn, and get trained more and just build my skill sets. Do you have any suggestions? I know this is sort of off the ethics topic, but suggestions on best sales training tools or programs that you went through?
I had individuals in my kind of cohort of people that came through the sales career path go through Sandler training. I had individuals that did Grant Cardone's School of Thought. Like there's tons and tons out there. To be really honest with you, I read a lot of books. I read the first sales book I ever read is by Daniel Pink called To Sell is Human. I hope that's what it's called. But that kind of started to help me think about the different programs that I wanted to search. That's how I found the Dale Carnegie program. Also, you know, if you don't have an educational budget, YouTube is a really, really cool space. The gentleman that's speaking to after us, Steffi, the CEO of Close, that guy's got killer content on sales practices and processes. He's really, really cool. I'm trying to think also what I was going to say on that. Oh, Beck Holland spoke earlier today. I'm a huge Beck Holland fan, total fangirl. At some point, I'm going to have to tell her that. Her YouTube videos are like a masterclass in being an SDR. So don't discount that as well. You don't have to go get a really expensive Sandler sales certificate. You don't have to do spin selling really expensively as well. Read the book, listen to some YouTube videos, watch some YouTube videos. You're in a good spot. But Griffin, you can send me a message and I can send you some stuff one-on-one.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Phil. All right. Where are we at here? We're almost at 3:30 my time, Pacific Coast. If there's nothing else, I think we can wrap it up here. Does anyone have anything else they want to add? All right. It's pretty much you guys and my mom. So thanks so much for coming. If you'd like to chat to me, please send me a Slack message. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very passionate about this. I love coaching people on how to build great sales teams. So if this is something that you want to talk about further, please don't be a stranger. All right, everyone. Thank you so much.